You do. Yeah, you do.
Excellent. Okay. So there we go. All right. Hopefully everybody can see that okay. I'm just going to make some things.
Perfect.
I'm also not used to doing these from my laptop, so my screen is like a fraction of the size that I'm used to. And my brother does have like a nice big monitor here. It's like, oh, I'll connect to the monitor. No, it didn't work. This is my brother's home office, by the way. So in case like you see any of the Lego in the background, so not me. All right, go ahead and get started then. So that was a wonderful introduction, Lori. So thank you very much for that. I'm not going to spend a ton of time explaining who I am. I think that a lot of people probably know me. I am a crazy cat lady. I normally mention this because I'm normally at home, and there's a really good chance that a cat will walk across my screen. There is a cat in this household, but it's very unlikely he's going to come across my screen. It's a bit of a scaredy cat. Anyway, in my former career, I actually worked as an analyst. So I think a lot of people come to home staging as sort of a second career. And for me, I worked as an analyst in my previous career. So I'm very into strategic thinking. I like to, look sort of big picture, then break it down to smaller steps and how do we get there. It's just naturally how I attack things. So I think that served me quite well in all of the businesses that I've run. I've been running my home staging business for 15 years now. So anything that I teach is something that's tried and true that either has been fully implemented into my own business or something that I have learned from others that I've worked with throughout the years. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on the actual training stuff. So I was asked about pricing, and so I kind of call the strategic pricing and profitability. And I know there were some specific questions that were provided as well. Some of them get covered throughout this talk. Some of them I kind of threw in at the end because they didn't quite have a spot to fit in, in an actual topic. But I'm going to go through, first of all, some questions I want you to ask yourself, because I think that this helps to kind of get our mindset going into, what the things I'm going to be talking about. So first off, are you a top-notch home stager, but maybe the phone isn't actually ringing enough? Do you know why your clients hire you? I find that most of my coaching clients get really stuck on this question when I say, do you know why your clients hire you? I don't know, because I'm great. Not quite as specific as we're going to want here. Do you know who your ideal client is? And I don't want anyone saying like, oh, I'll service anyone, because that's not what this is all about. Are you ever stressed about where your next client's going to come from? That stress normally comes from not really fully understanding who your clients are and why they're hiring you. And do you tend to stress over every proposal that you send out, wondering like, did I price it properly? Is someone going to hire me for this? What if I don't get the job? And then I want you to ask yourself, if this is you, are you the type of person who wants to keep everyone happy? Are you someone who perhaps doesn't really like to say no? Do you tend to work all of the hours of all of the days? Are you always stressing about money? Do you apologize to your clients when your quote is too high? And are you someone who wants to work with all budgets? Because these are some common traps that I tend to find. And I'm not saying that any or all of you are falling into any of these categories, but this is something that I do tend to find is quite common as I work with other home stagers. So that's something that's sort of leading a bit of this conversation today. Oops, sorry. So let's talk first of all about what you're worth. And this is a bit of a loaded question, I know. So how do you identify your worth? Before you can actually look at your pricing, you need to identify what your value is and what value do you provide to your clients. You also need to identify the expenses that you incur, including opportunity costs for every single project. So I assume that probably most here have set their pricing already, but regardless of whether or not you think you're priced correctly, it's likely that you've determined a pricing structure of some sort. So nonetheless, I am going to cover some basics of pricing. We're going to kind of take this back to the beginning of how to price out your, how to create that pricing strategy. There's a number of factors you want to take into consideration, including your expertise, your training, your overhead, your non-billable time that you tend to work. So we'll start with direct costs. And again, I don't think I'm teaching anyone anything new here, but I want to make sure that the basics are covered just to be on the safe side. So your direct costs includes, and so we've got your time and wages, your travel, and your consumable supplies and materials. So your time and wages covers all time spent on the specific project. So for a consultation, it might include your time at the consultation, but also your time to prepare for the consult, the travel to the consultation, any follow-up work that you're doing for that consultation afterwards, preparing an estimate, preparing a report. If you have employees, this is their employee wages. So if you have others performing the services, part of your costs, of course, are in paying them. And you should treat yourself as an employee because you need to be paid as well. So you don't want to think of it as, oh, I've covered all my costs. Oh, wait a minute, I forgot to give myself an actual wage for this. So we need to make sure that if we are our employees, we need to build our wages into our costs of what we need to be paying ourselves. Travel includes your gas, your wear and tear on your vehicle, any tolls that might be required. And then consumable materials include things that you cannot use again. So if you provide a written report in a non-digital form, for example, it's the cost of the paper, it's the cost of the ink. If you provide a client care package ahead of the consultation, it's the materials for that, it's the courier cost to send that out. Anything that basically you cannot get back that's directly related to that project. And then we have our indirect costs. So we've got our opportunity cost. This is the cost of what opportunities you could be missing out on by taking this service. So for example, if you're tied up all day on a stage and you're getting paid, say, $1,000, instead of spending 1 or 2 hours working on your business to land a $5,000 client, the opportunity cost of that project was $4,000. One of the ways that I often look at this is I know a lot of stages that don't charge travel time, for example, and they are willing to travel an hour or two outside of their standard service area. Well, if you factor in your travel time there and back, let's say you're 3 to 4 hours in travel time, you could have worked an entire other project in that time. You could have done another consultation, you could have done a small staging job. So that's your opportunity cost. Those are the things that you're missing out on by doing something else. You want to make sure you're getting paid well for the thing that you're doing to balance out those opportunity costs. Your overhead are things like your rent, your insurance, your legal fees, office supplies, staging supplies, those things you're using time and time again. Your staging inventory, those marketing dollars you're spending, payroll, that's all a part of your overhead. And then your training, of course, it's technically a part of your overhead as well. This is your initial training that you've invested in. It's any ongoing expenses for training. And this includes both your time and your money. This is a super valuable investment for your clients. So it should be considered a part of your project expenses. So your time here today, if you were charging an hourly rate for your time here today to participate in this training, that is something that goes to your indirect cost. That has cost you money by being here. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, but it is something that should be accounted for. So then what other considerations do you take into when it comes to your pricing? Well, I think a lot of people have probably done the market analysis. What are your competitors charging? And you also want to take into consideration, though, are those services comparable to yours? Do they include the same things? Do they have the same value? Do they have the same expertise as you? Is the quality at the same level that you're offering? On its own, using market-based pricing generally isn't sustainable. You shouldn't base your pricing for services solely on what your competitors are doing, but being aware of what other companies charge is a great idea so your prices aren't completely off base, or if they are completely off base, it's done so purposefully. I know some stagers that charge triple what the average stager will charge simply because they don't want to work as much. And they figure if they're gonna be working, they want to make sure it's worthwhile to leave their house. And then the other considerations are your ideal clients. If you know your clients, you know what they're willing to pay or what they're not willing to pay. Are they focused on value, or do they make decisions strictly on pricing? What is the value that you're providing for your clients? So we're going to talk a lot more about this in a moment. And then, of course, what is the profit margin? The profit margin, everyone always says, well, what should my profit margin be? Profit margin is what you want it to be. How much money do you want or need to make? What makes it worth it for you to leave to leave your house, to leave your business, or to leave your office, I should say? What is it? What makes it worth it for you? So I'm going to come back to a little bit on this as well in terms of your profit margin and understanding what it's like, for pricing yourself. So let's start first of all with your value. We all want to be paid our worth, but the first thing to ask is whether or not we are worth being paid what we're asking for. So are we providing too much value for our pricing? Are we providing not enough value? I once had coffee, so just actually shortly before COVID. It feels like it was yesterday, but somehow everything that happened pre-COVID looped it. It's kind of our pre, our during. Anyway, so I had coffee with this real estate agent, and he was talking about how, he's really focusing on trying to figure out, who his clients are, and he can't figure out what his marketing strategy is. And I said, oh, okay, well, what makes you different as a real estate agent? And he just looked at me with this blank stare. I said, well, what makes you different as a real estate agent? What is something that you do that no other real estate agent does? He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, we're a dime a dozen. He's like, I'm like every other real estate agent out there. I'm like, well, you're going to have a bit of a problem now, aren't you? And so we started digging into things a little bit further and realized, he's quite the family man, and he really finds that he really leans into those clients that have families. And he has sort of this special way that he addresses their, unique needs. Like, that is your hook then. Like, that's what you've got to lean into. That's a part of your brand, and that's a big part of where your value comes from. But to talk to a real estate agent, he's not wrong. We are oversaturated as real estate agents in my area. I don't know what it's like in your area, but it is a really difficult market for real estate agents. And you do need to find out what your value is. You do need to differentiate yourself. So if you've attended some of my talks, you may have seen a similar slide to this. I change up some of the items on it every now and then, but this slide has existed for several years for my talks. And there's good reason for it, because it's a really valuable one. I want you to start by evaluating what your value is and what your differentials are. So your value is everything that you offer. So don't worry about whether or not another stager offers the same thing. Your value is just things that you have done, you've invested in yourself. Let's say maybe you include photography, you're a member of RISA, you're investing in your training, you're award winning, you have certain specialized services, maybe you offer financing, you are a registered and insured business. All of these things have value. And then you start focusing on what actually makes you different. What are the things that nobody else is doing or that you're doing better than them? There's probably some items on this list that maybe you hadn't even thought of as contributing to your value, but they do. But you have to be able to back up your prices with the value that you're offering. So you want to make sure those two are aligned. Wanting to make more money isn't enough of a reason to price yourself a certain way. It's not a bad reason, don't get me wrong, but you also need to be worth it. So I want to make sure that you're stopping and evaluating this. And I do also want to be clear, I am not saying that anyone here is not worth what they're charging. And I'm not saying that you need to like jam pack a ton of things to make yourself valuable. I just want you to make sure that if you are asking for a certain price, you can say to your clients, here's why I'm charging this pricing. Hopefully you're never having to justify your pricing, but nonetheless, it's really good to know what it is that you're offering. So take a look at what you're offering. If you want to be paid as an expert, you need to be an expert. So what training have you received? Is it just your base certification, or do you invest time and money consistently in advanced learning? I mean, you're all here today, so I'm going to say probably. What else contributes to your value? And if you feel like maybe you're falling a little bit short, there's a lot of things here that you can easily add that don't add a lot of time or money, but will add immense value to your clients. And you can adjust your pricing accordingly as well. If you feel like, well, I don't include photography, but I totally could. However, I'm going to include that I need to charge more. That's also a fair statement to make. Things like, there might be a few people here that have my client care package. This is a fairly low cost item to have, but adds significant value to your clients. So this is a really great exercise. I recommend writing everything down. Don't just have it in your head, write it down. And then I actually also encourage you to put those items on an intake form. So when your clients are contacting you, you've got a quick reference of these are all the reasons why I'm worth it. The value of what you bring to your clients is not strictly in that specific service you're offering them. It's not just about the consultation or just that particular staging. It's about everything that you bring to the table as their expert stager. So when we're talking about value, what is value? What do you think of when you think of value? For most, value means getting a good bang for your buck. Doesn't mean the cheapest. It means that you feel that you got your money's worth. That's what value is. So what is a value proposition? This is, you've probably heard of this before. The value proposition is essentially a statement that basically summarizes why a client should buy from you. And this is the foundation for creating your marketing material. Helps you to establish, therefore, your unique selling position. I call this your wow or your awesomeness, but what makes you super unique. So I want you to ask yourself, why am I here? And what do I bring to the table that no one else does? And this might be somewhere that you might want to spend some time. Again, this is not necessarily intended to be a quick exercise. It's probably one of the greatest challenges I think that people have when it comes to building your business. We've been taught all our lives, of course, to be humble. And now I'm telling you, I want you to brag about all the super awesome things that you're doing and come up with one that makes you really stand out. That is a challenging thing for people to do, but I want you to identify how you're solving your clients' problems and be as specific and concise as possible. Now, in order to properly understand your value, you would need to understand who your client is, because what is valuable to one is not going to be valuable to another necessarily. So that helps you to identify what really matters. So you might have all these great items on your list of value, but if the clients that you're working with don't care about any of those things. So for example, we have some clients that we work with. We're really big on communication. I'll be talking about this a little bit more later, but we're really big on communication. And we have some clients that we work with that don't want to hear from us at all. And frankly, they're not our ideal client. It doesn't mean we're not going to work with them. It means that when we are crafting our strategies for how we're going to appeal to our clients and how we're going to better support them, those people don't come into the mix. It's not to say that they're not, like, they still may continue with us as we make adjustments to our business to best suit our ideal client, but they might get dropped off along the way as well, simply because the way that we do things doesn't align well for them. So take some time, figure out who your clients really are. And this is, again, an exercise in itself. So I would say specifically focus on repeat clients. So if you deal mostly with investors or real estate agents, I wouldn't focus too much on who your homeowner is necessarily, but it's not to say that you can't pay attention to your homeowner, especially if you find your ideal real estate agents are working with a specific demographic of homeowner. So if you're looking at real estate agents, do they work for a large brokerage or do they work for a small one? Are they an individual agent or are they a part of a team? How long have they been in business for? Are they fairly new to business? Have they been in business for a number of years? What type of personality do they have? What are some other characteristics that they convey? Understand that you will not be isolating yourself here. You're not going to say, I'm not going to service anyone else. So you can get very specific. You can be gender specific. You can, maybe there's a certain culture that you really work well with. Maybe it's your own culture for that matter. This is not to say that you're going to eliminate anyone else, but you're going to kind of develop that niche. When it comes to the homeowner demographic, like I said, you might find that you are working with a specific client, or you work best with a specific client that attracts a certain real estate agent. So for example, we work a lot with seniors, and we have a couple of our agents that specialize in seniors. So that's where those homeowner demographics do matter. So you may not be able to answer all the questions about your clients in one sitting, but this is a really, really valuable exercise for figuring out your pricing. Because once you understand who your client is and what their needs are, you can position yourself and your company accordingly. And it's going to affect everything from how you brand your company to the events that you attend, where you spend your marketing dollars, how you set up your pricing. And so technically you do all this, of course, as a part of your business plan when you're first starting out, but realistically, it's really difficult to identify who your ideal client is sometimes until you've been working for a little while. One of the exercises that I recommend, if you've been in business for a bit, and you've had a reasonable pool of clients, write out a list of those clients that you've worked with and ask yourself who your favorites are, and then ask yourself why. If your answer is that they give you a whole lot of business, that's a great start, but dig a little bit deeper. Were they easy to work with? What made them easy to work with? Were they maybe super organized and kept you organized? Or maybe they're super disorganized and you're an organized person and you did great at organizing them and they liked that. Maybe they gave you a whole lot of autonomy. I know I've got one of my coaching clients, she says, oh, agents they give me the bare minimum details and they just let me run with things. That's how she likes to do things. So those are the agents that she wants to work with. She even says she has an agent that needs hand holding. She's like, that is not my agent. I am not going to be able to be there holding their hand every step of the way. So who's your ideal agent? So for my team, a big part of why our real estate agents hire us and what they love about us is our clearly defined processes and level of professionalism. My team provides a very consistent experience every single time across every division. We're professional in everything that we do, from how we greet them to having someone in the office at all times. We send our client care package in advance. And we offer, so we've got a full service home staging, design, and renovation team. That requires a whole lot of communication. amongst all the teams. There are times where our design team is being called in to help to, we call it designing for selling, selecting all new finishes and do some updates and repairs for a house. Our design team will manage that and pass it back to the staging team. We have our renovation division or our upgrade division that will do the renovations before that house gets listed. So our brand promise to our clients is providing quality services delivered seamlessly for the ultimate client experience. Now that's a hell of a brand promise. In order for us to be able to uphold that, we need to support that through what we do behind the scenes. And that's done through our exceptional and comprehensive communication that we have both internally and externally. So we know based on our brand promise, based on how we're supporting that brand promise, we know exactly who the clients are that we want to work with. We aim to communicate in a way that works best for our clients, but we don't tend to work with those who are saying like, oh, just do your job and don't tell me about it. Like I said, we've got a few of them, but they're not necessarily going to be our ideal clients, and we will cater to an extent to their needs. But our policy is that we want to make sure that we're not missing out on any details that could be critical to their experience. So we are still doing exceptional communication. It's what we do, it works for us, and we find the agents to work with that this suits. So who do you want to work with? So for example, some agents like to work with a stager that's adaptable to their needs, flexible to their schedule. There can be value in this. It's like paying for something that's available 24/7. If you want that to be a part of your business model, by all means, it can be, but you're not just going to be doing it, the same way that every other stager does it. I mean, if you're saying I can be available essentially 24/7, then you want to make sure you're pricing your services accordingly and that your clients have certain boundaries and understand what the expectations are. And you want to market it for being the unique feature that it is. If you are someone who's like, I don't want to provide written reports, I want to do a walk and talk. So I will say I am all about the written report. And I can also say that I can do a written report just as, if not more effectively than a walk and talk in the same amount of time or less. And I find that provides better value to our clients because it takes some of the overwhelm away from our clients by saying, here's your to-do list in nice, easy to understand form. But either one can be spun for how you value it. So if you're like, I only do the walk and talk and here's why this is best for you. So you want to make sure that whatever that value is, however you're positioning yourself, that it's working for your clients. One of the things that Sherwin-Williams boasts about is their ability to color match. Has anybody seen what Benjamin Moore is doing now? They're now promoting, don't get your colors matched by another color company or by another paint company, or you'll be disappointed in the results. Good on Benjamin Moore. That's some solid marketing because Sherwin-Williams has built their name on their ability to color match. Saying you can get any paint color you want through their color matching system. All of it. I'm still going to buy my paint through Sherwin-Williams personally, but I respect what Benjamin Moore is doing for their promotion. Anyway, so what problem are you the answer to? So if you're still not sure what your unique selling position is, what your value proposition is, what your wow is, one last exercise for you. Think about your ideal clients and yourself and think, what problem do I answer? What am I the solution for? And if you're thinking, well, I help to sell homes faster and for more money, while that is true, I want you to dig a little bit deeper because every home stager can say the same thing. Home staging, yes, helps to sell homes faster and for more money, but what do you do to ensure this? Perhaps the problem is not the time that it takes for the house to sell or the amount that it takes that it sells for. So how else can you provide a valuable service to your clients? Perhaps the problem is living in the home while it's listed and you provide solutions for that. Maybe you have these cool little checklists to help make it easier for them to live in a staged property. Maybe it's preparing for showings. Maybe you have a service for that. Maybe you have a photo prep service that provides an easy solution for each showing. This is a great way to consider also, like, what are your upsell services? But what is something that's just a part of how you do things? Is the money the issue? Maybe you offer financing. Maybe you're thinking about, you've got investor clients. They're stressed about all the money that they've put into the house and how much they've spent. They've spent so much time making decisions that they're ready to just move on to the next house. So you're like, listen, I'm going to take all the decisions away from you at this point. You move on to the next house, just leave this in my hands. I'm going to create a highly marketable home designed specifically for your target market. I'm going to showcase your investment. And here's how I'm going to do it. Show them the stats that you've done because investors love their stats. Maybe your ideal client is a senior that's downsizing. So again, think about what problem you are the answer to and how you're solving that for your clients. And again, go back to this. What is your value? If you haven't made this list already, go through and make this list. I cannot stress this enough. And I'm not expecting you to do it right this moment, but if you haven't done this exercise before, I want you to do this exercise at some point in the next week, because that's going to help you with your pricing strategy. And again, if you think that you're not necessarily providing enough, what can you add that's of minimal investment to you? Because I'm not saying I want you to spend a ton of money to make more money. What kind of investments can you make, though, to boost things up? Okay, so now that you've got your value figured out, you're going to want to be able to communicate it. It's not necessarily about just outlining all this information, laying it out there for visitors on your website to see, but that doesn't hurt as a starting point necessarily. It's about how you communicate your brand every day. So maybe you start with a mission statement or a brand promise. I mentioned my brand promise earlier. We've traditionally always had our mission statement on our website. We are working towards more things that are focused around our brand promise, because we feel very strongly about providing that ultimate client experience to our clients. So do you have a mission statement or a brand promise? Is it one of those things where you're like, I made one at one time, but I don't remember what it is? If you don't remember what it is, you're not living by it. It's not working for you. So revisit that and see what that could possibly be. Your logo is another way that you communicate your value. If your logo doesn't represent who you feel you are as a company, if you're not happy with it, it's time to change it. And it can be a scary thing, but it's not uncommon for companies to change their logo. I mean, look at Starbucks. They're on their fourth logo at this point. I know you don't necessarily have the funds that Starbucks has perhaps to do all this marketing and rebranding, but take a look at your logo. And if it's not one that you're loving, then you might want to change it to better reflect you. Take a look at your website. Does it effectively represent your brand? Does it tell your story? Is your value clearly outlined on there? This is a screenshot from my homepage. It's not our most current one. I actually went on, I was like, oh, I'm going to take a new screenshot. I'm like, oh, this one does just fine. The point is that I want when people land on our website, I want them to be able to see instantly the type of work that we can do. And this is specifically promoting our upgrade division. We call it our upgrade division. It's technically, they do full renovations, but we call it our upgrade division because it's a little less intimidating for our home staging clients to say like, well, this division is specific to our stage and design clients. So we can say, well, we've got someone who can do all those updates for you. So then what about perhaps some sell sheets, promotional materials? These are your business cards, flyers, postcards, brochures. Even like do you have a headshot? Is that on your website? Is that on your promotional materials? Is it on your business card? I know that we do a lot of things in the digital world. There is still something to be said for physically handing someone something at an event. They need something tangible that they can take with them. The same thing goes for the client care package, for example. So we have the SRM. Anyone here using the SRM, the Staging Risk Management? Risa introduced this years ago. This is essentially, it's technically not an insurance rider, but it's kind of like an insurance rider. And this helps your clients to protect your inventory while it's in their home. It doesn't cost you anything to add it. You can add a markup to it, or you can have your clients purchase it directly, but it adds value to you. So it doesn't cost you a thing. So the pricing I have on my flyer is converted into Canadian funds. It's a little bit trickier for us because we have to purchase it in US funds and I'm in Canada. But we created a flyer. We got it approved by Worth Ave Group, which is the insurance group. We got the flyer approved by them to offer this using the SRM logo and their logo. And we put this in all of our client care packages for our clients. And we also have it as a part of our contract that they have to say yes or no to this before we'll proceed. So this is a really easy thing. So creating like a little sell sheet like this that speaks about a particular item that you offer of value can have a lot of value. This is another great little sell sheet, promotional sheet we've used at events. It goes into our client care packages. Again, it's promoting our upgrade division. It's simple, it's to the point, it's not super wordy. Basically just saying like, hey, we can help you do all these things. People are usually like, I need help doing this. I don't want to try to find a painter. I don't want to find someone to do my backsplash. We'll come in and we'll do it all for them. And then the client care package I mentioned earlier. Again, this is not meant to be like a sales pitch or anything, but if you have the client care package, that is something that's adding to your value as well. And that's a great way to be able to communicate your brand and your brand messaging. There's lots of great things inside of this. So then what else have we got? What about some did you know or FAQ videos? This is something that I find people do not do nearly enough of. And I'll admit, even for myself, I've recorded a bunch of them, but I'm so due to update some of them. But never assume that something is obvious to your clients just because it's obvious to you. So when in doubt, spell it out for them. We love having these FAQ, did you know type videos, because it comes up where clients will say, well, I don't understand why it's so expensive to stage my property. Well, we have a little video that's a 5-minute video about all the costs that go into staging your property. So these are great videos to have that help to communicate your brand. And it's so great to be able to say to a client like, oh, here, I answered this question in a video. It just shows that extra level of professionalism. I mentioned earlier an intake form. I don't know if anyone here has an intake system. And this can be literally like a physical paper form that you write on. It can be in a digital format, but creating that internal intake form is a super valuable tool because you're going to outline on it, your value as well. So this will help you to be able to communicate your brand and your messaging to your clients and make sure that you don't forget anything. Another thing that an intake form does is make sure you get all the information you need from your client. There's nothing worse than like, oh, shoot, I forgot to get this information from you and having to go back to them. So it keeps you nice and organized. You can also track your follow-ups with your intake forms as well. And then what about your proposals? What do your proposals look like? Did those match your value? Create a solid template that shows images of your work, clearly outlines exactly what they're going to get for their investment, showcases the awards that you've won. That will all help to communicate your value to them. And then finally, honestly, live it, prove it. Perhaps part of your value is your community focus or a charity that you're involved in. Talk about that on your social media page. Don't be afraid to mention that. My stagers all wear a pink tool belt for all of our consultation services. Seems like a small thing. It's a big part of our branding. Immediately shows our clients that we're professional, we're here to work, we arrive ready on time and ready to work for them. So it's not just about getting the job, it's about living it through everything that you're doing throughout every part of the service. So you really want to make sure that you are living authentically and working authentically. I mean, I always talk about being a crazy cat lady, partly because if I'm going to show up at a client's house, I'm guaranteed to have cat fur all over myself. It's on my pants, it's on my coat, but it's very endearing. There are a lot of my clients that even if they're not cat people specifically, that like animals. So they like knowing that I'm doing something for my community with my rescue animals and such. All right. So this is also a loaded question. I want you to ask yourself if you're underpaid. If you answered yes, I want you to reflect on how you define underpaid. Is it simply that you need to make more money to live, or is it that you don't feel valued at what you do? Big part of burnout that I hear from stagers comes from just that last part of it. They don't feel valued for what they do. They feel like their clients are constantly asking more of them, and they feel like they're already offering it for as cheap as they possibly can, and they feel like they're constantly getting pushed out to provide more. So this is a really important question to ask because it helps us to understand, is it our pricing that needs to change, or is it our clients that need to change, or is it both? So assuming that your pricing is already set, I want to talk about whether or not you should raise your prices, because I can't do a talk about price without talking about raising prices. And I know what you're probably saying, how can I possibly raise my prices during a recession? So let me start by addressing that. I get it, it's scary, and frankly, it might not be the best move for you. So this is not me saying you have to raise your prices, but here's the reality. The recession is putting a strain on most businesses, regardless of their size, regardless of the number of years they've been in business, or how loyal their clientele is. It might feel like you need to work harder for every sale now, and you're spending more time convincing people the value of staging. So the thought of charging more can certainly be scary. If you've been operating on a razor-thin profit margin, though, it's safe to say that it will be difficult to survive at those same rates during the recession because all of your costs are going up. So this is where doing that evaluation of what your real costs are is going to be really important for setting your pricing. So I hear a lot of reasons for not wanting to raise your prices: fear of losing clients. I often hear, my local market won't support it. There's no way I can raise my prices. Super competitive. There's tons of stagers here. There's this one particular stager that always lowballs everything and they get all the jobs. And so they're always super busy. Hear that all the time. I don't think I'm worth enough. I don't think I can charge more. I don't think I haven't been in business long enough. Maybe it's a fear of success, or maybe you market your brand as a low-cost stager. So I get it. So why should you raise your prices? Well, you can make more money and be more profitable, or be profitable at all. I will say this, I've said this on several of these talks. If you are not making profit, you are not running a business. It's that simple. So we want to make sure that we are making enough money to be sustainable. Raising prices could help you to work with your ideal client. If you feel like you're undervalued right now, perhaps it's your clients that are the issue. And you tend to be able to work less but make more. So that's a big value to raising your prices. So I'm gonna do a little bit of math for you. I keep it really, really easy, don't worry. So I asked my hairstylist one time, this was a couple of years ago, I asked her, when was the last time you raised your prices? And she said, oh, I have, I've been raising them over the last few years. I said, really? My pricing hasn't changed. And she said, oh, I only raised my prices for new clients. So my pricing has been grandfathered essentially as an existing client. I'm like, that's pretty awesome. I was pretty excited about it, but she had never told me that. So for me, in my mind, her value is what she's been charging me for the last 10 years, essentially. So if you are going to offer a deal to someone, you want to make sure they're actually going to know about it. Otherwise, you're devaluing what you're doing. So I asked her, well, how many of your clients are new and how many are existing grandfathered? Well, I'm sure you can probably guess. Majority of her clients were more like me, her existing clients. So raising her prices wasn't really doing much. So I said to her, okay, let's say you have 5 clients per day and you raised each client's pricing by $10. Just as a random, like obviously they're all different services, I get that, but we're just using this as a bit of an example. So you raise $10 a day. That's an additional $50 a day. It's an additional $250 a week and an extra $1,000 a month. So she starts thinking about what she can do with an extra $1,000 a month. So let's move this into some stager math. Let's say your current consult rate is $200. You do 5 consults a week, you make $1,000 a week. Let's say you raise that to $250. Now you can do 4 consults a week and make the same amount of money. So you have more time. Now, if you still book 5 consults, great, you've made more money. But if you book only 4, if you lost 1 client through all of this, you still made the same amount of money. So 1 less consult per week equals less work for the same amount of money. And so this kind of goes back to if part of your fear of raising your prices is that you might lose clients, the reality is you might, absolutely. There's a very good chance you will lose some clients. They're probably the clients you want to lose though. So raising prices also helps to set an expectation of quality. And now this is one of the most important things that I want to teach because it's all about expectations. So I want you to be able to control your own narrative for your own brand. When you see a nice iMac computer versus a PC, what do you expect? You're going to expect probably that you're going to pay more for the Apple product. And your Apple product's probably going to last you a bit longer than your PC is. There's a certain expectation of quality. What about for hair? Which one do you expect you're going to pay more for, and which one do you expect you're going to get a better quality out of? How about hair? There's sort of an expectation associated with these brands, right? You know what you're getting. I know what I'm getting if I go to Dunkin' Donuts versus if I'm going to Starbucks. If I go to Starbucks, do I think their lattes are actually worth $7? No. Am I willing to pay it? Yes. I'm paying for the whole experience of Starbucks. I enjoy every bit of it, and I pay a lot of money for it. So you have my permission to get paid your worth, to focus on what matters to you and who matters to you, and to be treated with respect. You don't have to be everything to everyone. When you enjoy a job more, when your clients value what you do, you are going to enjoy your work so much more. So even if you end up losing some clients and getting paid the same amount of money for it, isn't it worth it to be happier? And then you can work on building up your clients to attract more of your ideal clients. So I want you to focus on that. So when would you not raise your prices? Well, if you're happy with where you are and what you're doing, if you're already profitable at what you're doing, then maybe you don't need to raise your prices. Maybe you thrive in bid situations and you love playing the pricing game. So you want to compete on price. You've created efficient systems. You can bang out multiple stages in a day. You make a profit margin that you're comfortable with. You want to be the budget stager. Great, own it. At no point am I saying you can't be the budget stager, but make sure you have the right systems in place and the profit margins to support it. maybe all of your clients currently fit into your ideal client criteria. So great, maybe you don't need to raise your prices. You can just simply focus on building up some volume. Maybe your prices are right, but your volume isn't, right? So maybe it's a matter where you're like, I'm not making enough money. But again, maybe it's a volume issue, not necessarily a pricing issue. So get really clear on what your services include and what your pricing is going to be. And then I want you to stick to it, because agents are trained to be negotiators. So I'm going to give you some pricing strategies that will help you with setting your pricing, raising your pricing, and appealing to various clients. So I like to call it the Goldilocks 3-tier pricing structure. You got something for everyone. So some people are going to always want the cheapest. Some people are always going to want the best of the best, but majority of people want the best value, which is always going to be that middle pricing. So this is a strategy that companies have been using for decades, having 3-tiered pricing. We've seen it especially as so many online companies are popping up. If you look at online pricing structures, majority of the time, they're going to offer you 3 pricing structures. And they're usually going to highlight that middle one as the most popular. Another example, see how that middle one is just a little bit bigger. All right, this is some staging consultations. See how that middle one's just like, this is the most popular one. It's going to give you the best value. We still have this basic one for you, but this is going to give you a better value. So what I actually did, actually, let me go back to the slide for a second. What I actually did when I first started out, I had only one consultation structure. And I had some clients that I knew were going to fight me tooth and nail if I raised my prices. So what I did was I took my basic, the consultation I was offering, I made that into my middle consultation, and I took a couple things away from it. Nothing compromising the value. It's still the same amount of time I'm spending at the consultation. They still get a written report, but I had some of these extra things that I was able to take away from it. So I took these things away, stripped it down a little bit, called it my standard one. So those people who just wanted the basic, they could get the standard one. If they were going to complain that they didn't want to pay for the pricing of my premium, fine, you can get the basic one, but don't expect to get the same thing for it. And it made everybody very happy. Majority of people really will go for the premium. So now I mentioned earlier, I don't want you negotiating on pricing. So I don't want you to discount, because discounting sets expectations. And this kind of goes back to those expectations. Devalues what you do. So upgrading holds a much higher value. When you get upgraded on a flight to first class, do you ever think when you're sitting in first class, like, oh, I'm glad I only spent $200 on my first class ticket. This is totally only worth $200. No, your first class ticket's usually going to be worth a whole lot more than a couple $100. And you know that. So if you got upgraded to first class, you're not thinking that the money that you spent is what you can spend again to get that first class experience again. So discounting tends to open you up to negotiation. But if you don't negotiate, your clients will stop expecting you to negotiate. So instead, you can offer upgrades. And these can be, we call them yes opportunities. Maybe there's an opportunity to do something a little bit outside of our standard practices, throw in something for free. That is considered an upgrade. So instead of discounting, we're going to upgrade. I mentioned expectations. This is kind of a fun little story that I like to tell. So this is my front entryway. You can kind of see the doorbell in here. Those 3 pipes hanging down is an old school doorbell. My house was built in 1946. So right here, this is the doorbell here. See this cute little face? This is Casey. Casey likes to ring the doorbell, like as in reaches up, swipes his paw at it, rings the doorbell. It's really annoying. So what did I start doing? Because he was ringing the doorbell and it was really annoying, and I knew that he was just in play mode and just wanted to play and he was just trying to get my attention. I gave him my attention. I'd get a toy out and I'd start playing with him. So what did I teach him? What expectation did I set? I taught him that if he rings the doorbell, I will play with him. Let me tell you, it took me about 2 years to break that habit because I set those expectations. It's really difficult to break those habits once you've set the expectations. So you want to be really careful about what expectations you're setting. The more you negotiate, the more you discount, the more you set that expectation. Anyone ever order anything or book anything on these sites? If you do, you probably never expect to pay full price, right? You specifically go to these sites expecting to get a deal. Those are the types of expectations that you could be setting with your clients if you're constantly allowing for a discount. Okay, so one of the questions that was also submitted is, how do I raise my prices? Here we go, we've covered that. but how do you introduce your pricing? Well, for starters, you want to focus on value. And sorry, there's a okay, check for the chat here. Got all these different screens here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about focusing on the value. I had my electrician come out. I'd blown an outlet at my place. Came out, took him 5 minutes to fix it. And I paid him, I think it was $150 for his time for 5 minutes of work, essentially. And I actually had this conversation with my dad recently. He had hired a plumber, and I was going through some of his receipts. He's like, oh, he's a total ripoff. He's a thief. I'm like, what are you talking about, Dad? Like, did he steal from you? No. He came out, spent 5 minutes, charged us $80 for a $5 part, and charged us $80 just to even come out to the house. I said, well, that's pretty standard, Dad. A lot of people won't leave their house. They won't come out to your house unless you paid them. He said, yeah, but he was only there for 5 minutes. But what did it take for him to be able to solve your issue in 5 minutes, Dad? Like all the training, all the expertise that he's put into things. So I paid my electrician to be able to fix my problem in 5 minutes. Could I have done it myself? Sure. Would it take me easily an hour to shut off the power and figure out what the issue was and take everything apart, go to the store, buy the parts? I paid my electrician $150 to spend 5 minutes on purpose because I paid him for his level of expertise and his training to be able to do it in 5 minutes. When you're providing the solutions that your clients need and want, they're going to pay you what you're worth. You're pouring time into providing a service usually translates into your customer saving their time, right? So don't forget to consider your valuable time when you're coming up with your pricing strategy and marketing how much valuable time you're going to be saving your clients by getting their house sold quickly. By maybe you take everything. I have one stager on my team. Oh, she's an absolute natural at this. And her big thing that she focuses on with her clients is like, listen, you want to save some money? You can do some of these things yourself. What I'm charging you for here is I'm going to do it all for you. And you don't have to worry about it. You can basically leave the house, you come back, it's all done. And the clients are often like, you know what, that does sound pretty appealing. I get that. Other clients are like, you know what, I need to be more budget conscious. All right, we're going to do some of this work ourselves. Fine. So focus on your value. All right, there we go. And then build trust. And trust doesn't come overnight, but you need to have a trusting relationship with your existing clients if you want to keep them. And you need to be prepared to earn the trust of your new clients. Zig Ziglar, my favorite, Zig Ziglar. If people like you, they will listen to you. But if they trust you, they will do business with you. So work on building your partnerships. I hear a lot of sort of like us versus them kind of mentality when it comes to real estate agents sometimes. Work with them, not against them. Earn their trust. Our clients know, our real estate agents know that we sell with integrity, as in we are not going to try to tell your clients that they need to bring anything in that is not going to be valuable and useful for them. And that's what they trust. They tell their clients, like, listen, whatever they tell you, trust them. We trust them. You need to trust them. They're not just trying to make a quick buck. And that integrity comes through in everything that we do. And then, okay, so introducing your pricing here. Yeah, you want to give your loyal clients a heads up. So announce your prices. I'm sure that you've probably received price notice or price increase notices yourself. You might not love it, but you get it. What would annoy you is if you were a loyal customer somewhere and suddenly without notice, the price went up. So nurture your relationship and give your loyal clients a heads up. Another thing that you can do is you can also grandfather them in. I talked about this a little bit earlier. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. This is from when this very first one, I mentioned how this was years ago that I did this, where I had a single consultation package and then I introduced these 2 other tiers. So the way that I introduced it was I actually didn't tell anyone I was raising my prices. I simply said, I'm offering 2 more tiers to serve you better. So now I sent out the price sheet. They can see that the pricing didn't change. Yeah, I've got 2 extra tiers, but I still have that pricing that they've been paying this whole time. So I didn't even need to tell them that I was increasing my pricing. And so then for my loyal clients, the following year, or I think it was 2 years later when I went to raise my prices again, I've done several price increases over the years. So I use honestly the same template every time. So I mentioned that we're adjusting our pricing on, in this case, it was October 1st, 2018, to better reflect our value, yada, yada, yada. As a thank you for your loyalty, we're going to hold your pricing until January 1st. So we gave them 3 months at the existing pricing that they were at. They loved it. No one batted an eye when their pricing went up on January 1st. So I kind of mentioned this already. There's this whole kind of us versus them. When I always hear it's, oh, real estate agents this, we're generalizing every single one of them, grouping them all into one big bucket and saying how they're all just a pain to work with. You want to be a part of their home selling team. You have to be a team with them. So you've got to learn how to work together. So set clear expectations from the beginning. Keep your communication and feedback open. Ensure that they understand how you work, but also take time to understand how they work. You want to make sure that your processes, services, pricing, all of that is being respected. They need to feel that you respect them as well. So make sure that they feel heard. So what are some things that they want to see from you? Get that feedback from them. If there are issues that come up, address them quickly but nicely. Take emotions out of it. Talk business. Ensure that they feel heard in their issues, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to bend to every whim. It could just be a matter of providing clarification. Avoid being defensive though, and ensure that you're communicating effectively with them. And just show your value in everything that you do, and you'll have very few issues. All right, and then when it comes to introducing your price, the last tip that I have is educate. Introducing your new pricing may require an element of education. You may need to be prepared for this, but it's all about how you approach it. So again, this goes back to what your value is now, right? If you know what your value is, it's a lot easier to be able to explain to them why their pricing is the way that it is. So we got this this was a real estate agent who was listing her own home for sale. This is just looking at these quotes, I feel that they are extremely high compared to other stagers I have dealt with and other realtor friends of mine deal with. Also, my parents, who are also both real estate agents, my parents' stagers have staged vacant homes for $1,500. So I feel I will take a better look at it and let you know what I feel is best for me. That sounds great, right? We didn't get defensive. Now, there's a whole lot of text in here, so I've kind of highlighted the specific parts here that are most important. But one of the first things we always say is, I can't comment on how any other staging company prices their services. What I can tell you is that a great deal of time and expertise goes into each of our projects. We have minimums. Here's what goes into those minimums. You will see that our stagings are complete staging. So for example, if you look at our pictures in our portfolio next to other stagers, you're going to see that our rooms feel a lot more full. Like we consider ourselves, we only bring in what's absolutely necessary, no more, no less. But we also make sure that there's no empty corners or areas that just feel really stark and blank. And so we identified and explained all of this. We got the job. They had a quote from another stager, but they found us to be more professional, and they just had that more confidence that we were going to be able to execute it properly. So they were willing to pay the extra $1,500. She also liked our ideas better. So as soon as you waver, they're going to start to question your confidence. So we didn't waver. We did not say, well, let me see what I can do about this. In this particular case, there was no way to reduce the pricing for her. In some cases, you might be able to say, I can reduce the pricing by taking some rooms away. Here's a testimonial we received. It was an absolutely glowing testimony about our level of professionalism, but my favorite was this last line. I will admit the other quotes were cheaper by $1,800, but the exceptional customer service sold me on BTSH. This particular client has now hired our design team. Like I said, we have a full service design team in-house. She's now hired our design team to help to completely redesign and decorate her multi-million-dollar home. So that led to a really good project. This particular client left us an absolutely glowing Google review. They did ask for a price reduction. We said no. They booked us anyway. They loved us and gave us this glowing Google review. It does pay not to negotiate on price. So now when you have those clients that are asking you for, or telling you that they can't work with you because their budget just doesn't support it, I do not want you to apologize. How many have said, I'm sorry, but I can't do the job for less, or I'm sorry, but that's the price? You're not sorry. It's not your problem they can't afford it. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but Chanel doesn't apologize that I can't afford their purse. So, if I walk into that store, they're not that upset if I'm walking out of there not buying something. So I want you to get really comfortable with being profitable. Instead of apologizing for their price, apologize for their budget. So sort of that sorry, not sorry. I'm sorry to hear that your budget won't allow us to work together. Love that one. Sorry to hear that your budget won't allow us to work together. What you can say is, you can eliminate some rooms. Don't discount, but you can say, if it fits your budget better, I might be able to eliminate a couple of rooms to get down to your budget. What is the budget that you're working with, and get them to give you a real number. And then that shows that you are willing to work with them, but it doesn't say that you are worth any less than you said you were. I think you've probably seen this meme out there. Just keep it in mind, it's your name that you're putting on whatever your staging is. So if your clients are asking you to do it cheaper and you do a less quality job, like how do you put your name on that? So what you end up doing is you end up doing the same quality for less money. And then that's not really fair to you, of course. So this sort of came up as I was putting this together. There's also one of the questions that was submitted about how to choose hourly versus fixed pricing. Whichever pricing you choose for your services, you want to ensure the expectations are clearly set. Make sure your clients understand exactly what they are paying for, what they will get for that fee, what's not included. So some people do hourly consultations, for example. Perhaps you're offering styling services like, oh, hey, I'll style your items, and it's an hourly rate that you're going to charge for them. So whether or not you should charge hourly versus fixed is a few things to understand. One of them is you want to understand your client. Some clients are going to prefer a fixed rate versus hourly, especially if they're price sensitive. They want to feel like, okay, I know exactly what this is going to cost me. I can budget for it. If you are going to price your services hourly, this can help you to ensure profitability and to know that you're going to get paid for all of your time spent. However, some clients may not like the unpredictability aspect of it. So this will work well for projects where the scope is maybe unclear or difficult to calculate. If your client can't be clear on what exactly they need, you can tell them, I can't price something I don't understand, so I can just basically give you my hourly rate. This can work well for a client too if they fear that you're going to price high due to some unknowns. If you're like, listen, like if you want me to give you a flat rate, I can, but I got to account for some things that I don't know about yet. It might be better to do an hourly rate. If you are pricing hourly, though, I do recommend that you provide at least a ballpark of how many hours you anticipate things are going to take, as well as outline any other expenses that you think might be incurred, so the expectations are clearly managed. This is similar when contractors are doing time and materials for a project, for example. So they'll usually say like, oh, I'll do time and materials. I don't think it'll take more than a few hours, but there's some unknowns here, so we just want to be prepared. So giving your clients a bit of a ballpark at least. For fixed, your fixed rate should still be based on the amount of time you anticipate a project is going to take, as well as any anticipated costs, of course. The only time that a fixed rate should change on a specific project is if the scope of work changes. So make sure that everyone fully understands, like all parties involved clearly understand the expectations for the scope of work. Make sure that it's really spelled out there if you're doing a fixed project as to what is going to be included and what's not included, so that anything that's outside of that scope can then be re-quoted. For our contractor, for example, we call it a change order. So, and you can call it whatever you want. You can call it an addendum or an amendment or whatever to your original contract or scope of work, but make sure you're getting it approved in writing that this is going to be this is what the extra thing is I'm going to provide you with, and this is the extra fee that it's going to cost you. I talk a lot about managing expectations. I thought you'd appreciate this slide. So I mentioned earlier that we have our brand promise about providing the ultimate client experience and this whole seamless execution. Seamless execution can only help if we've got this great communication going on behind the scenes, as well as great communication with our clients. And so that all boils down to managing expectations. So this is internally, this is what my team uses on a day-to-day basis. I have this posted up in my office. Does the client know what is expected of them? Does the client understand what we will be doing? Does the client understand what they will be paying for and what it will cost? Am I ensuring that the client will have a positive experience? And do I have a clear understanding of the client's needs? I can't move forward on any project until I know that I've answered all of these questions properly. Obviously, we want to make sure that we're saying yes to every single one of these. If you're ever saying like, oh, I'm not sure the client really knows what this is going to cost them, then you're not doing your job properly either. And you are more likely to end up having challenges. And that doesn't feel good for you. It doesn't feel good for them. All right, so let's talk about selling staging a little bit, because I know that when I started my company 15 years ago, the home staging was relatively a new concept, and I spent more time educating people on what home staging was and why it mattered to them. So I wasn't necessarily trying to set myself apart from competitors. Frankly, there weren't that many of them. I was simply trying to get agents to understand the value of staging. So if you are finding that you're doing a lot more selling these days, which most stagers have said that they are, you want to start by focusing on education. We know the value of staging, but we can't assume that everyone gets it. So in your blogs, in your real estate agent presentations, doing reels and videos, focus on what home staging is, what goes into it, what the value of it is. Bring out some stats if you can, whatever, be as specific as you possibly can when you're talking with people. So whether it's in these more public settings or one-on-one, be specific. People want to hear about actual real experiences. Now, I don't want you to say people's names or their address, or like that gets a little bit creepy in terms of privacy. But if you're at a networking event, for example, and someone says, "Oh, what is it that you do?" Say, "Oh, I operate a home staging company." And you can further the conversation by saying, "Oh, I was working with this client last week, and this was the situation she was dealing with. Her husband had passed away, and she had a lot of stuff in the house. We went in there, we helped to create this whole action plan for her. We went through day by day, getting items moved out. I mean, whatever your services are, be specific, tell actual stories about how you really helped someone in a specific situation. Give them some examples of what that circumstance looks like. And it just helps to make it that much more relatable for them. And then paint a picture. If I'm doing a consultation and I know that the client can benefit from me returning to actually stage it, I'll get super excited about what the house is going to look like when I'm done with it. I paint a picture for them and I'll say things like, "Oh, I've got the perfect piece of art for above that sofa. Pretty sure I've got it in stock. I'll put it aside for this project for you." Gives them a bit of that sense of urgency too, where I'm saying like, "I think I've got it in stock. I can put it aside for like a day or two while you're deciding if you want to move forward with the staging." But I'll start to really spell out what each of the rooms is going to look like. It doesn't mean that you're giving them every single like, "Well, it's going to have a green little flower here, and it's going to have a stack of books here," but you're creating that overall vision of what it's going to be like. "Oh, I see creams and whites, and we're going to make it nice and bright and airy in here. It's going to have sort of like that cottage kind of feel in here," or "It's going to have sort of that modern eclectic feel in here." Like, sell them on what it's going to look like. If you've seen a specific TV show or a room somewhere, like, "Oh, have you seen the latest ad for whatever company?" It's going to be kind of like that feel. Give them something specific that's tangible that they can really hang on to, and they're going to be that much more inclined to say, like, "I want what you're selling." As in, "I don't want to do this myself. You clearly are the expert. I want you to do this." And then know when to walk away. Some people just won't ever get it. And again, this goes to understanding who your client is. If it's taking that much to sell them, walk away from them. So that was all that I had for sort of the formal stuff. I did have a couple of these submitted questions, like I said, that were, I figured I could just sort of answer a little bit more casually, if that works for you guys. And then if anyone has any additional questions as well, but I thought I'd start with the questions that were already submitted, if that works.
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. So this was one of the questions. Should trade discounts be shared with clients? It's kind of like a multi-tiered question. If so, at what percentage? How do you best communicate this? Should it be a higher percentage shared for brokers and builders, or the same? And is it different when purchasing wholesale versus retail? And the short answer to this is, I can't say how you should run your own business and how your pricing model should be. What I will say is this, though: trade discounts are not done for you so that you can give all that away. They are to help you to be profitable. So if you are like, yes, you should be charging for your time, but you should also be making money on these orders that you're placing for your clients. So, and I'm not sure if this is based on, purchasing finishes or supplies or furniture or whatever. If you choose to share that with your clients, that is up to you. I would never recommend giving the entire amount of it. And realistically, you don't have to give any of it. So should it be shared with your clients? It really depends on the relationship that you have with your clients, how you're building that relationship and what that looks like. That said, where it does get tricky is once you get into retail purchases. So for my company, we mark up every single item that we purchase, and we have it at our cost plus a percentage. It doesn't matter if we got it wholesale or retail or whatever. If it is a wholesale product, and we say, I believe it's 25% that we mark everything up. So let's say our wholesale pricing, we get 40% off. And of course, we're taking the pricing, the delivered pricing. So if we've spent time assembling it, if we've paid anything for free, like all of that gets factored in there. That's all a part of our cost, plus 25%. If it ends up lower than retail, we will show them, here's the retail price, here's the price you're going to get from us. It's usually a fairly minimal discount, but it's something that makes them feel good. I don't think anyone's clients need 40% off to feel like you value them. So if you want to give them 5% off, that is perfectly fine. But as far as how to communicate it in your contract, their pricing is cost plus whatever percentage your markup is, and they pay that on retail as well. If you want to have it where you can source the retail items and they can go out and buy them, by all means, they pay you for your hourly time and they can go and do the purchase. But my issue is if I'm paying for these items and then I now have to resell them to you, I'm paying taxes on those. And again, everywhere is different. I'm paying tax on those. I'm paying merchant fees if you're accepting credit cards. I've spent the admin time to prepare the invoice. I'm paying a bookkeeper to balance my books. All of these are going into that pricing. So there should be at least some markup on everything, even if it's retail pricing. You should never be passing retail pricing directly onto your client unless they are literally going to the store and swiping their own credit card. I had one client I worked with years ago. It was a pretty big project that I worked on with him, and he gave me his own credit card to just go shopping with. I didn't have any issue with using his credit card for retail stuff. And even like there was a couple of stores, like at a Lowe's, we would get a 5% builder's discount or whatever. I'd give that to him. But when it came to the wholesale purchases, I just told him all that has to be purchased through our account and gets billed separately. And he was totally fine with it. So again, it's up to you what your model is going to be. Everyone's a little bit different, but I personally would say, like, yeah, make your money. Definitely make your money. That's what those trade discounts are for. So another one was, do you rent your inventory to realtors who stage on their own? So again, I can't say, I mean, I can say what I do, but it doesn't matter what I do versus what you want to do. Is this something, what does your business model tell you for this? It doesn't matter what I do. Can you be profitable doing this? Is it the type of work you want to do? If you feel like renting your inventory to real estate agents is going to be less profitable than keeping it for yourself, and you have minimal inventory or you're worried about running out of inventory, then I wouldn't necessarily rent to them. But if you think that it can be profitable, sure. Again, it's what kind of business are you trying to build? Are you a rental company? Because there can be good business in that as well, but then make sure that you're making your money on it. How's delivery working? Are they picking things up? Where's the liability on things? Make sure you're well covered for that. So the next question was, how should you cost out an occupied staging? My company is a bit unique in that we do custom quotes for everything. Occupied, vacant, doesn't matter. We have a spreadsheet, lots of formulas in it, fairly plug and play. My stagers all use it quite easily. And we literally go through and identify exactly how many of every item we need, how many sofas, how many chairs, how many beds, how many lamps, how many accessories, all the deals. Accessories we group together, like a centerpiece has a fixed rate. It's not like we're pricing out like every single little vase necessarily, but we plug all that into the spreadsheet and it spits out a number. So we do the same thing for our occupied and for our vacant. If you want to be a little bit more simplified, you can just take a look at, approximately what the items are that you're bringing in. What does that look like? Add your time to it, add your delivery fees. You don't necessarily need a fancy spreadsheet for doing it. We just want to make sure that you're accounting for the items that you're bringing in and your time. If you want to maybe not have to worry about the rental items themselves, charge a higher hourly rate and just say the rental items are included with your hourly rate. So that was all the questions that I have. I am going to open it up for if anyone else has any questions, but I did want to say that I put together this. I talked about having a really solid staging proposal. So we've created one in Canva that you are welcome to use. If you simply go to this website, you can grab your own copy of it, and I will throw that actually into the chat. I'll do some things on my screen. All right, so there's the link there in the chat. The other thing I was going to mention is that I've got a special going on for our Home Staging Business Builders Training Center right now, where you can get it for $5 for 3 months. Sorry, I thought I had all these things already loaded up there. So there's tons of great content in here. We provide new content weekly, lots of business building tools, ebooks, video tutorials, webinar replays. There's the link for that. Here, I'll type this one in here as well. And I will send information out on this. If you grab the proposal template, I'll send out an email with some more information on the Business Builder Center as well. And then the other thing I was going to offer is if anyone would like to set up a chat, if you're like, listen, this was great, but I've got some really specific questions that I didn't feel comfortable asking here, you're welcome to set up a time to do a strategy session with me. I will mention, though, of course, I am traveling for a little while still. So I am doing a working holiday in California right now, but I am actually heading to Arizona on Thursday, and I'm there until Thursday next week. So I'm out of commission for a little while. I can't get back into my chat to type this one in for some reason. There we go. Okay, so last website. So yeah, so there are times available once I'm back. I'm back for a week and a half, then I'm off again for a week in Dominican, and then I'm back. The joy is that, you know, when you build a company that can run itself, my team can operate without me, which is really nice. So that is all I've got for you. And there's that website again. So does anyone have any other questions?
So I do. I want to retouch on the occupied staging again. So
Okay.
I do both. I do occupied and I do vacant. Obviously vacant's so much better. For the past couple of occupieds, I've had items come back damaged or really dirty, things that will take extra time to clean. I don't know whether it's better to go in with a higher rate on my items for an occupied and anticipate that something's going to be wrong, or I don't know. It's a tricky one for me. You know,
So I hear this actually quite often, and I will say that we actually are predominantly occupied stagings. And when I'm talking occupied, we're not talking about bringing in a few pieces of artwork. Like, we do full service occupieds that are usually anywhere from $3,000 to $8,000. So like, we're bringing in a ton of stuff for these occupied properties. And I will say that that's been predominantly my business for 15 years. And we have had a fraction of items damaged to the point where we need to actually pay for it. So what we do, and so this sort of, it's a kind of a twofold thing. There's the pricing strategy, but there's also the setting the expectations before you bring the items in. And it doesn't mean that you can guarantee anything's not going to get damaged. Don't get me wrong. But for example, if they've got pets or kids, we're especially candid with them and say, listen, I can bring in some items for you. And, you know, I can give you the price and everything else. I want you to be well aware, though, that you're going to be liable for any damage, any cleaning that happens in here. And so if you prefer, I don't bring in any soft goods, for example. Like, if they've got kids, we're like, listen, my kid will definitely eat a peanut butter sandwich and then go put his hands on that pillow there. So like, this is probably not a good idea. Other times it might be like, listen, I can just tell my kids to stay out of that room, and they are on it. They make sure their kids stay out of that room. As long as they fully understand what damage looks like or what a cleaning bill is going to look like, they're usually going to be that much more invested in ensuring that the items are going to stay in good shape. So as far as pricing structure, we don't charge anything different for the actual products or for the staging or anything. We do have it built into our contract, though, that they are liable for the items. If an item is damaged beyond repair, they are charged full replacement value, which is usually our cost of acquisition times 2, because it costs a lot of money to get these items in there, to have to be out of that item and everything else. So we make it pretty expensive for them. If an item can be cleaned or repaired, we will simply charge them for that with a markup on it as well. And all that is clearly outlined in our contract. There are times where if we've done like a $5,000 to $6,000 stage and a towel comes back dirty, we're probably going to identify it to the client, let them know about it, and then we're usually going to say, you know what, don't worry about it. I'm pretty sure we can just clean that up. We're not going to charge you for it. You know, so sometimes it does mean that we're trying to salvage the relationship. But if you're doing an occupied staging for like $1,000 and a table gets damaged, yeah, you're charging them for it. So I think that you can potentially charge them more. Every place is also different in terms of like, can you charge them a deposit? We can't. It's illegal for us to charge deposits for things. So like a non-refund, like a deposit going towards the services, yes, but we can't charge an additional fee and hold it for cleaning or damage or anything.
Yeah, I do have it noted in my contract. I guess it's just
You've verbally
frustrating.
communicated.
Yeah. I thought it was You know, it
Hmm.
was just irritating because I thought they'd take good care of it. They knew that it was ours, blah, 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 but no.
And
So
sometimes that also happens. Yeah. Like sometimes it's just, but do you want to punish every future client because one client couldn't take care of your items?
no, you're right. It makes sense. So,
Yeah. Well, but make sure your pricing covers it. But I mean, of course, the question is also, do you need to raise your prices anyway? If you need to raise your prices anyway, that also helps to cover that a little, make it feel a little less annoying if it happens again.
I think that's it too. I think I need, I think if I raised my prices over what I rent my furniture for,
Mhm.
it would be less of an issue for me.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any questions?
We gave you quite a list, Shauna, and you hit it out of the park. Thank you so much. That was we had quite a few people comment and send in questions, and that was really great. So thank you.
Good, good. I'm glad I could help. I gotta move some things on my screen here. Oh, you're all welcome. Thank you. No, I'm glad I could do this. Hope everyone got some good tips from it. I was gonna say, I know it's early, it's more early for me, but still it is still an early start to the day at 9 a.m. So hope everyone enjoyed everything here. I'll stop sharing my screen here so I can actually see everybody. But yeah, I'm glad I was able to come on and look, see, it's daylight here now.
See,
The sun's come up.
will you do me a favor? Will you explain to people your hair? Because I was on a call with you one time and you went through it and I'm like, oh my God, it's brilliant.
What do you mean about my hair?
You were
Explaining
saying that people will remember you.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like, and so yeah, it's not so much that I do my hair so people remember me, but it's impossible for people to forget me. Like even if they don't remember my name, they're always going to remember me. I'm always the crazy girl with the pink hair. And it's done really, really well for me building relationships. So, and I'm not saying you have to dye your hair pink or do crazy hairstyles like I do to be memorable. But I'm a big proponent of like, be memorable. Like that is a part of your brand, who you are, what you represent at all times. When I was saying earlier, like live your brand, be memorable in some way, because we come across it all the time where our stages will go in and they make such an impression on our clients that our clients are just like jumping to give them a Google review and calling the office and saying how amazing they were. And meanwhile, a lot of our clients these days, again, we've been doing this 15 years. It's not uncommon for our clients to have had another staging experience in their lifetime. And we'll often say to them, oh, well, do you remember who the stager was? Nope. Don't remember the company name. Don't remember the stager. If you're not making an impression, they're not going to call you back. And so we've had clients, like we had, we mentioned referral business and repeat business generally comes from investors and real estate agents. We get a lot from homeowners as well. There are some homeowners we've worked with like 4, 5, 6 times over the years, because it doesn't matter if they use a different real estate agent. Like, no, we're using Beyond the Stage Homes. They're the only company we'll use for staging, and they're singing our praises and telling the world about us. So you don't necessarily have to have my crazy hair, but it is funny though. So I'm with my brother, and so he's got 2 kids, and my mom. So because we live so far away, so I live on the East Coast. He's here in California. My mom lives in the same city as me, and she said to me when they were really young, especially, she's like, "Aren't you afraid that they're not going to know who you are?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I will always be the crazy aunt with the cool pink hair." So, and of course, my oldest niece is 13 years old, and I've had pink hair the entire time she's known me. So
I heard you say it on one of your webinars one time, and I'm just like, it's so perfect. It's just so perfect.
One of my podcasts actually talked quite a bit about pink hair. It was one I did with Luann Nigara called, was it Purpose, Passion, and Pink Hair or something like that? Because we were just talking about how like just creating the brand around authentic you. I think that's really what it comes down to, like be authentic. So if dyeing your hair pink isn't your jam, don't do it. But what else can you do that helps you to stand out? Like one of my friends, he wears 2 different socks all the time, and like funky, crazy socks that people can see. And that's just something he's known for. And it's a little witty, and, it's still professional, but he's just always got these crazy socks. So it makes such a great impression that clients can't help but review you positively without you asking. Yeah, exactly. And like I said, when I walk into stores and stuff, even if someone didn't catch my name, they know me. They're like, "Oh, hey, you're back." Like, yeah, I am. They don't need to necessarily remember my name as long as they're sending people my way. So, yeah. Awesome. So no one else had any other questions? I covered everything. I love that you guys submitted questions in advance, by the way. That was super helpful for me too.
We wanted to make sure that we covered what we needed. So,
Well, I know, because a lot of times in the moment too, it's harder for people to think of like, what are my pressing questions? And especially when I've just thrown a ton of information at you. So
no, but there's
Okay,
a
well-
lot of little works in there that I think a lot of us will take away and spend some time thinking about.
good. I'm glad. Well, and I know you've got the recording of this as well. And again, if anyone wants to have a one-on-one call with me, book a strategy session. No charge for these things. I love doing calls with different stagers and seeing if I can help your business in any way. Well, we can cover in 20 minutes.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank
Awesome.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you, especially getting up so early.
Not a problem. I'm gonna go have breakfast now.
There you go. There you go. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, I think that was awesome.
Oh, awesome.
And we got the questions answered that we needed to. So,
Yeah.
all right. I think we're good. Does anybody have any questions for us at the chapter? Nope. Okay, then everybody go and have a great day, great week, and we'll catch up soon.
Yes, and have a great Valentine's Day.
And happy Valentine's Day.
Happy
See y'all
Valentine's
later.
Day.
Bye-bye.